Kidnapping, trapping, 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 trapping. 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 Kidnapping, trafficking, abusing, alienating, killing, foster prison, foster slave, domestic terrorism, crimes against humanity, international agenda, CPS, kidnappers, social workers, police officers, stealing children from loving homes, by force, fraud, lies, fabrication, tampering with evidence, official oppression, malice, conspiracy, corrupt courts, corrupt judges, corrupt dependency, lawyers, government, trafficking children, CPS, kidnappers, child protective service, steal children by force, fraud, fabrication, tampering with evidence, official oppression, malice, CPS, kidnappers, all day, every day, steal children, steal children, steal children. Kidnapping, trapping, 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 trapping. 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 Kidnapping, trafficking, abusing, alienating, killing, foster prison, foster slave, domestic terrorism, crimes against humanity, international agenda, CPS, kidnappers, social workers, police officers, stealing children from loving homes by force, fraud, lies, fabrication.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Porthole to Justice. I am the window to the truth. I am your host, Amelia Duran, and it is November 25th. Welcome to the show. And please feel free to join the live chat. I am here today with guest Danny McGowen out of Los Angeles, California. And we're going to be highlighting and discussing some of the top stories in our new project, CPS News Network. Danny, welcome. Welcome to the show. Hi. Okay. So, several news stories, top stories. Well, first of all, let's talk about the new project a little bit, just briefly, because we've only done a couple of these news updates. So, do you want to share a little bit about yourself and about the project? Are you there? Uh-oh. Okay, stand by. Somehow we got connected. It's so odd. All morning, my Skype is being interfered with. So, stand by just a moment. I don't usually have problems.
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Welcome to the show.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you for having
me. Yes. Thank you for coming on. So I was just telling everyone the CPS News Network is fairly new. It's one of our newer projects, and it's doing very well. And I was just wondering if you'd share a little bit about the project. It's kind of an online magazine on Facebook exclusively, and we are looking to target more and isolate and data mine the stories and present them in a way where people can really engage, and the response has been absolutely phenomenal. Do you want to share just a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we've been at this for 6 years, but this new project, CPS News Network, is focusing on children and parent safety news. So we're really going to try to cover other issues too. But right now, our core focus is the Child Protective Service issue. But we're just getting engagement that we haven't seen before with other people sharing this content, and that's so important. People that are outside of the advocacy movement are sharing this content, and that's what's giving us the viewership that we're getting, the exposure, just reaching a whole new audience. One visit to our news network, and there's nothing else that needs to be talked about. It's case closed. There's this has to stop. And the only way you can make that stop is to keep the families together. But CPS doesn't get any money unless they're apart. But the only way they can resolve what we're seeing is to keep families together and have that money keep them together. So, we had like 130,000 video views, 200,000 reach in 30 days. But we're seeing commentary from people we've never seen before. So that's what's exciting is it's really, we're getting a new audience, and they're sharing with their people. And I want to remind everybody to share stuff. Don't just react to it, but share it. You can go to our pictures, our photos, copy a whole bunch of them. And in your free time, you can just be posting them anywhere.
The memes are really, really powerful, and you're doing an amazing job, Danny. You just incredible at isolating some of these stories that we unearth, and the response. I'm just like overwhelmed with joy in regards to the response, because, like I was mentioning in the Facebook Live, a huge part of us winning this war, the war on the families, is creating the mass awarenesses with, the general public at large. And, part of creating the change is, getting people to understand the levity of the issues that are occurring with the families. And nobody is immune. Nobody is immune to this abuse of power within our judicial system and the Child Protective Services. So,
of course, with the divorce, a simple divorce, separations, the targeting, social targeting, the domestic, any kind of domestic issue, and just accusations with no evidence, and how the bar is behind promoting a lot of the failure. They say more money travels through family court than any other court. It's where the big money is, and they're just raping families for their money by causing the problem. I mean, fostering the dissension, the separation, of the family, pitting the wife against the ex-husband or whatever it be. But they're the massive false accusations, exploitation by the lawyers to keep these cases active and in court, to really drain the parents of their assets. It's ultimately a lot of what's behind this, and the judges with no accountability, making, especially in the dependency court, just making heinous, keep them in custody rulings when they're not safe there. They're not safe in foster care. Mm-hmm. These children need to be trained. They need to be given devices, panic devices. They need to be trained and educated as to what the dangers that they face. So important. It's like people going to prison. They need to be educated what to expect, how to act, how to carry yourself, what to do. And they especially need someone they could reach out to trust, because they're trapped in a system where they can't trust anyone, because they know it can be turned against them. They can flip their lives upside down. They can medicate them. The foster kids aren't able to reach out. Like PLE from Australia, that was murdered by her fosters after 6 months, and raped by the son, murdered by the foster parent. She pleaded with a neighbor 2 days prior to her coming up missing to let me stay with you. Let me stay the night with you. If I go home, there's going to be problems. So, these kids, they need panic buttons. They all need to be issued panic buttons. They all need to have a clear safety mechanism that they can trust, that to get them out of these situations. Whether it be with foster parents or if they run away and end up out on the street. But a lot is... Go ahead. I
want to mention, something that is a real issue, and one of those issues is the children being placed in harmful environments and situations where they're being subjected and objectified to the human trafficking. 80% of the human trafficking victims are from the Child Protective Services foster care, and that is a real statistic. There was a story that was profiled in the social media and news network, as well as in CPS News Network. A young girl who was actually sold by a foster father. you want to elaborate on that story?
Okay, I'm not really familiar with that story.
I'm talking about the one with the police officer.
Yes, the dungeon, sex dungeon. Yes.
Yeah.
A multi-millionaire owner of a hotel, Baymont Suites, Connecticut, expects to buy a foster girl, age 12. He didn't want one 16. He said that's too old. Wants them at 12. Thought he had one. They had an undercover officer in a trailer parked in his parking lot of his hotel. Took a picture of her on the floor. She's a skinny girl, looks like she's 12 years old. She's actually a police officer. He thought she was a foster girl, 6th grade, and he was paying $500 for her. And he had special requests for poor immigrant children, girls, or foster kids. Those are his prey. That's his target market. He's done this before. They found a dungeon in one of his offices, another little separate from his Baymont Suite Inn, with handcuffs and multiple beds and like a cage, some type of metal cage, a fence cage. Just all the apparatus there for a sex slave. He was going to train them. And it came out because they connected his Baymont Inn email address with him wanting a casting couch interview on Craigslist. So they followed that email address of a business to him, and I guess they tracked him and lured him in somehow. But he's an EMT, like a 20-year emergency medical technician, and just very wealthy and doing this in plain sight. I mean, if you're having a $500 hostage taped up, tied up in your parking lot of your hotel, and then you have a sex dungeon supposedly right off of a main street with a lot of traffic on it. It's clear he appears to be running this in plain sight, his operation. So it just
I mean, it really is right in our face, folks. I mean, it's not, and that's the thing, it's hiding in plain sight. And so we have to sort of flip the script on, we have to change the perception of the public of what's occurring to these children, because they're very vulnerable. These are crimes, horrible, horrible crimes that are happening. And these children are being put in very dangerous situations. And oftentimes they are, they're not just abused, they are also murdered. Didn't we lose another child this week?
There was a 4-month-old death in Contra Costa County, not covered on the news. A 4-month-old, deemed healthy. Supposedly the mother tested positive during birth of some substance. I'm not sure if it's illegal or legal, but there was a positive test. Keep the baby away from the mother. The baby's fine and fully healthy. Many of these mothers that test positive, the children aren't damaged. They're healthy babies. They're exposed to whatever the mother may have been taking, legal or illegal, but the babies come out healthy many times. And it's a healthy baby, deemed healthy, 4 months away from mother, dies. We spoke with the family. There was a picture of the baby tied up like an Indian in those little cocoon things, all rolled up like a Tootsie Roll. And the baby was smiling. But still, these kind of restrictive environments, it's like a restraint. You can imagine a newborn being in that position for any long period of time is not good. We just know that the child was deemed healthy by a nurse and placed in a foster care home and dies. And that just broke, and there's no coverage of that right now.
These stories are not covered in the mainstream media, and these are the most important stories to the people. This is what the people want to hear about. And it's just so horrible. It's what these kids are subjected to, folks. We have an LA County, a $6 million settlement in a Department of Children and Family Services case. This was published November 20th. In the LAnews.com. Oftentimes they're published in these sort of obscure, websites are published. They're not made mainstream. They're just so they fulfill that obligation. However, these stories are not being highlighted in the manner that they should. The Board of Supervisors Tuesday approved a $6 million payout for a woman who said her 15-month-old baby was seized by county social workers against her rights. The decision to settle followed a board vote in June 2017 to appeal a jury's decision to award $3.1 million in compensatory damages to Rafaela Duval. The panel found that that the county's actions amounted to unwarranted seizure of a child with malice, but denied punitive damages to Duval. A $3.1 million judgment included $165 award because Duval was deemed to be a victim of discrimination. And folks, this is a large settlement. However, these their childhood cannot be replaced, and they're not being returned. These children, once they're in the system, even though these cases and these large settlements are being won, the children are still not being returned to their parents.
Yes, that actual amount went to $6 million. It was like $3.5 million. They didn't want to pay her. Said that she wasn't emotional enough to have suffered damages because she wasn't, an emotional wreck. They didn't pay her the 3.1, 3.5, and now it went up to 6. On top of the 6, you have the $2 million legal fee bill that the Board of Supervisors agreed to pay. This is Los Angeles. It was hate crime discrimination. He called them white trash. Vreeken, the social worker from Orange County, she's now the deputy director of the whole operation there in Orange County. Already, they're not being prosecuted. You talk about the immunity issue. These people are getting away with crimes and nobody's stopping them. It shows you the audacity and how comfortable they are at what they do. And that the more ruthless that they are, the higher they will go up and the faster they will go up in the system. It's no different than law enforcement. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I was just going to mention in the archives, I have an interview with attorney Sean McMillan, who won the case, the Vreeken versus, was it Vreeken versus Hardwick?
Okay, yes, that was the original. We're switching from we were on the Duval case.
Oh, Duval. Yes, the Duval case. I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. My mistake. I meant to say there is an archived interview with Sean McMillan, the attorney on the Duval case. Sorry about that.
Got it. Yeah, it took a long time. They should have settled early, but this $2 million fee to pay the lawyers. I'm sure that probably includes the county lawyers that fought this case. But it's same way with the Hardwick. Hardwick Vreeken.
I know. I get. I don't know.
Too. Here we go.
You know why I mentioned that? Because I was thinking about the right to lie case. Because we did a video the other night, I think, about the Vreeken versus Hardwick case that went to the Supreme Court. A part of the problem in these secret courts, the juvenile courts, is the fact that they can submit lies into the record that can be that can actually substantiate these cases without any proof, and no due process. So, yeah, that's why I was thinking of that, and I got him a little bit confused.
I got him confused myself. So, yes, maybe lie detectors for anybody making an allegation, evidence. Basically, they can only they're getting away with the most of that in the children's dependency courts where there's no trial. Hearsay is admissible. These people can get away with anything, and it's mainly that people aren't educated as to how corrupt they are, how tight-knit corrupt they are. They're all very tight, from the bailiffs to the judges to all the lawyers. They all know it's a show, it's a charade, and they have to play.
A lot of the courtroom trials are staged from the onset, unbeknownst to the parents. So oftentimes the parents will come out, they'll go in, thinking, oh, it's Child Protective Services. And so they'll go in thinking, oh, I'm just going to explain and I'm going to get my children back. And that's often, most of the time, not the case. These parents are coming out of the courtroom with whiplash, and in total disbelief because, the people generally believe that Child Protective Services operates in the best interest of the children. And that couldn't be further from the fact.
Just keep everything off record. Even the bailiff will come up if you try to make a statement and get it on the record. They'll tell you to be quiet. They'll grab your arm. They'll push your arm down. They will literally working with the courts to keep any kind of communication that they don't want off the record. So there's nothing beneath these people, how they all work together to deprive you, to keep stuff off the record, to harass you going into court. Me, myself, I was harassed every single time, just searched by 2, 3, 4 officers. They went through everything, keychains, loops. They wanted to know any kind of recording device they were concerned about because of the corruption that was involved in my case myself. So 4 officers there during the hearings, during like the first 4 or 5 hearings, 4 LAPD officers there for 8 hours, the whole day, just sitting there in the lobby. So just holding hearings without me present in there. They'd all go into the courtroom for an hour, and then they'd all come out. Yeah, just never underestimate the collusion.
My evidence was absolutely withheld from the record, and I had committed no crime at all whatsoever. And in my particular case, I experienced the same sort of activities in these secret courts. They are closed, and This is a crisis. This is an emergency crisis. This we cannot have this in the United States of America. There's no due process, and this is happening. We have a suicide crisis with these foster children. These children are being placed into pedophile rings. In Los Angeles County alone, before I moved, there were 1,000 registered pedophiles that were approved foster care placements. So it's just truly it's a crisis. Are you there? Are you still with me?
Yes, I am. Oh, yes, clear.
I was looking okay, and then so I was looking up the Devani case out of Arizona. Recently, there was an update on that in the CPS News Network. Can you profile that?
I'm following. Not sure what the update was. Go ahead.
It was a custody hearing, and I thought I had sent you. I thought I sent you over the case. There was
listening.
There was a custody hearing. I'm looking it up right now.
Okay, yeah. For people unfamiliar with the Devani case, placed with a pedophile fraud sham, David Fraud Sham, working with a military person from San Diego, exchanging child porn, and that's how they caught Fraud Sham. He was being sued by another victim that was there long term. Devani was only there, I think, like 6 months. But then she was given to another adopter who burned her 80% of her body, amputated toes. The mother was always complaining that there's something going on. She has problems. She knew there was abuse going on, and they used that against her to terminate her parental rights. Arizona, no changes in policy, procedure, the worst torturous acts ever. The paramedics said that when they arrived, she was on the floor in the mother's bedroom, just in shock. Her eyes were wide open. She was in shock, wrapped in a towel after being burnt with 130-degree water. And, they're claiming that she was held down to get those kinds of burns. She had to be held down in there. And she also testified. Why they don't give this child back to the mother it's beyond comprehension. That, nobody's doing anything about this. And just the most heinous, egregious acts, long-term, physical, emotional abuse is happening in foster care. Go ahead.
Yeah. So recently there was a custody battle, and I had sent you over a link to the case so that we could profile it, and I wasn't sure if you had received it or not. I think the mother is still trying to fight to see her daughter. I know it's just a horrible story. This mother was denied visitation to her daughter in the hospital. Her daughter was crying out for her, and these crimes are just so off the charts. Are you there?
Yes, I am. Go ahead.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you were still there. I was trying to look up the update. I'm trying to find it.
Yeah. They're callous, ruthless. Enough is enough. Basically, these judges are getting away with this. They're the guillotine. It's the social workers that bring the kids and the family into the guillotine, but the actual puller of the lever is the judge. They know what they're doing. They know the risks of keeping kids in foster care. They know that they have a job to do, and that's keep as many in the system as possible. They're all behind it.
They have to increase every year. They have to increase the amount of children that they bring into the Child Protective Services in order to. It's a requirement for them to receive the federal funding, which in itself is criminal.
The adoption bonus money to increase adoptions every year.
Yeah, that in itself is criminal. And the American Safe Families Act was established by the Clinton administration in 1996. And effectively, it put a bounty on all of our children's heads and our elderly. These crimes are not just happening to the children. They're happening to our most vulnerable in society, the elderly and cripple. And, okay, yes, so we did profile the Devani case. Are we simulcasting in the CPS News Network?
Negative.
Oh, okay. I'm not seeing the link to the article, though. Just not seeing it.
Yeah, there's just no due process in these children dependency courts. There's no due process. Hello? I mean, if we just had that, it would stifle 75% of their market and really cripple them if we were just given due process. A trial for termination, no hearsay admissible. But they've gotten away with it. You pay enough people, you put enough money out there, you can run an operation like this. And I'm not sure how much money is involved, but if you can do the math at 500,000 in foster care times an average of say 8,000, you can come up with a number of how much money is being spent.
I mean, the majority, they are absolutely objectified from the moment that they step into these foster care placements. And oftentimes they're being groomed for this culture of human trafficking. And so that's where it's coming from. And the majority of these crimes are not being committed by civilians, folks. They are being committed by people within the system.
Sure, they don't care. They know the damage they're doing. They know the brain trauma. And that's what the whole industry is fueled off, is the trauma, the brain damage to everybody, families, children, permanent damage, post-traumatic stress. These are war crimes. The children are experiencing the exact same effects of children of war. It's no different. So are the parents. So these are war crimes against parents and children, and they're the harshest, most severe mentally that anyone could ever experience.
Well, I definitely thank you for coming on the show today, and maybe I can get Kirsten Herrera to post the links to these articles in the comments to substantiate our update, the CPS News Network update, and that would be awesome. Danny, thank you so much for coming on the show.
You're welcome, and thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, and I will look forward to having you back periodically to do these updates for the CPS News Network, folks. Please subscribe on Facebook exclusively, and feel free to join and subscribe to the Porthole to Justice. It's absolutely free, and join the live chat. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. This has been another episode of the Porthole to Justice Off the Cuff. Have a great day.